Welcome back to the Missions Bayou GiveNOLA Day Playbook. I'm your host, Maya McGee. If you haven't yet watched episode 1, go back and start there. You'll want that foundation before diving into today's episode. In episode 2, we're talking about your GiveNOLA Day profile. This is the page that donors land on when they're deciding whether to give to your organization. Think of it as your storefront. On GiveNOLA Day, donors are scrolling through hundreds of nonprofits, making split-second decisions about where their money goes. Your profile either stops that scroll or it doesn't. We're going to break down exactly what it takes to make the profile work, what to prioritize and what to avoid, and how to make sure your page is doing its job. If you haven't already, download the GiveNOLA Day Playbook Worksheet by going to our show notes or go to comfystone.com/GiveNOLA Day Playbook. It covers all 4 episodes and gives you a place to put everything we discuss into action. Now let's go meet our panel. Welcome back to the GiveNOLA Day Playbook. I'm joined again by Rachel Swan from the Greater New Orleans Foundation, Diana Turner from Be Loud Studios, and Megan Moreland from Gamble Communications. Today we're getting into your GiveNOLA Day profile. So Rachel, obviously this is going to be a lot from you. We got to upgrade this year on the platform, correct? Can you walk us through those upgrades and maybe what a nonprofit should be doing to create their profile?
Absolutely. So we are partnering with a new technology backend. We've always worked with different companies. And what they've done is imported information from past GiveNOLA days into their backend. So organizations go to givenola.org, click on the blue Register Now button, and enter their EIN or their organization name, and they can claim their profile. They obviously, as always, should look over it and make sure everything's accurate. It's a great annual opportunity to update your impact numbers, make sure your mission is right, vision, values, etc. And there's several prompt boxes on the back end for organizations of what they might share about their work. The one that's required is the mission box because every organization has to have a mission. So a lot of folks, when their profile comes over, it has their mission at the top of sort of the About Us area. They can just copy paste it down into the mission box, or maybe it's different and they need to refresh that. The other boxes are a variety of ways to talk about the work you do and the folks or constituents you serve. I would encourage organizations to, like I said, look at all their pictures and make sure that they are accurate and show the work in the best way possible. When I've looked through some profiles, it seems like everything has carried over correctly in the sense of the photos are oriented the right way, the logos are centered properly, but we've had organizations that have changed their name. And so they want to go in and make sure that the way their name is displaying is how they want it. There's also an option to put in other terms. So they might put in their past name, they might put in their nickname. So that will help donors in searching. Another really, really cool functionality is, I think, a smoother integration of videos. So if you have any videos, highlighting those within your profile, that's a great way to communicate the work you do. I was talking with someone and they shared a good tip of when you look at your profile from the public view, trying to make sure that the text at the top is short enough that folks can see there's videos or photos without having to scroll down, as kind of like an enticement to scroll down, is helpful. I think a big challenge that Megan might have some tips on is how you truncate the work you talk about, because that's what you do as the nonprofit organization. You have a deep passion for the folks you serve, the work you do, and you could probably talk about it all day.
Yeah.
And what you need to do is, like we mentioned in episode 1, come into a very clear message about what you're doing within this fundraising campaign. So it might be, we're this organization that works with these folks to make this change, and we are fundraising to do this. Photos. And just getting very clear on that, I think, would be a good idea. There's also, as has occurred in the past, but would want to be refreshed, an option to share what a donation will position the organization to do. I think Diana has shared that $20 can connect a young person with a microphone. It might be $50 buys a month worth of cat food. It could be that $100 is going to make sure somebody has durable medical equipment for a month. Whatever that is another powerful way to tell your story for your donors to understand the impact they're having. Just to triple check, you know your organization best. So after you input your information and it gets approved, go look at it on the front end and make sure you're happy with it. It could be your default logo looks a little small, so maybe you need to work with somebody or figure out how to crop it yourself so that it appears a little bit larger on the screen. That's really up to you.
Diana, you've had to build your profile for Be Loud Studios a couple times throughout the years. Can you tell us what tips you have or what you think makes a successful profile from a nonprofit standpoint?
I think that the core message is going to be really important. And then the visuals. I always get feedback from our community about like, man, I love that picture or that video I hadn't seen before. I'm so glad to kind of be able to see what Be Loud is actually doing. And then the other thing I think is helpful is those donation tiers that Rachel spoke to as well. I think a lot about in grant writing, we talk about like the brother-in-law perspective. We want someone who's less familiar with the organization to be able to log on and suddenly go like, oh, I get exactly what Be Loud does. So whether that's your brother-in-law or your cousin, just having somebody who's unfamiliar with your organization really look at it so they can see, is this communicating easily and simply in this way, I think can be really, really helpful. I think a lot of donors, I send the link directly to them. And so they're already in the decision-making process when they click on my link. And what I want the page to do, the profile to do, is just affirm like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Be Loud is cool. Their pictures are really special and the impact they have on kids is huge. I'm donating. So just, again, kind of removing that friction and making them feel excited when they see that page about what they're committing to.
I will sometimes forget that you have to look at it as if somebody is seeing this for the first time, knows nothing about you. And when you look at it from the guest viewpoint of what's going to make them scroll all the way to the end, I think is really helpful to people to think of it that way. Maybe have a fresh set of eyes, like someone who isn't super familiar with your, that friend, that neighbor. How does this flow for you? Megan, from a consumer standpoint, piggybacking off of this, what do you think makes for a good GiveNOLA Day profile? Like what would make you donate?
You really have a matter of seconds. Like, brief, sometimes maybe less than 5 seconds to even snag that audience that is going, whether they've followed a direct link or they've found you organically through browsing GiveNOLA Days, profiles, which I love, is my favorite hobby and pastime. But really, when we're thinking about high resolution, high quality photo and video, we're thinking about that because as human beings, we want to connect instantly with the organization that we're giving to. And so making sure, first of all, that they're high resolution and well thought out, it really we're creating an environment of trust. Quickly between you and the consumer. I'm going to use the word consumer, between you and the donor. That is hard to do when you have seconds to make a connection. And so the best way we do that as human beings is through visuals. And I also want to encourage our nonprofits to think about the messaging, but also the use of the visuals. When you include photos of people, for example, like making a connection with the camera, looking directly into the lens, it makes a big difference. I would also consider the fact that folks, especially when they're giving on GiveNOLA Day, they want to feel like they're a part of something that's bigger than themselves. Yes. We want to be part of helping that nonprofit gain that new beautiful facility, or we want to be part of that little kid's journey to get their first microphone and get their first taste of what media really feels like. That is something that we as New Orleanians know better than anybody else, really matters. And it makes us feel like a part of this community in another way, in a tangible way. And so when you're planning your content, really thinking through creating those emotional moments as quickly as possible. And then in terms of the messaging, we have to have that message to accompany that video, but I can't reiterate enough how it has to be short, it has to be concise, it has to be clearly crafted for the audience you're trying to reach. I would add to that the minute that you click on the profile, you've got to be able to convey that message before you scroll. Like all the essential things you want that viewer to understand about you and your organization, they've got to be able to get it in one look. So thinking about it from the perspective of yourself as a consumer is important. As a consumer, I am somebody who I assign myself a budget every year. Like I'll say, okay, Megan, you have $200 this year because you're rich. And then I'll go through profiles and I will really choose organizations to give to. It's fun for me. And so I often will give to new organizations that I learn about through the profile. And when it's professional, when it's thoughtful, I also immediately trust the organization that my money is being given to a place that's going to use it in a trustful, trusting, and responsible way.
Yeah. I also like to do the browsing of go through the categories and learn about different nonprofits because there's so many people doing things. And I think the photos of whatever community you serve, whether it's women, children, animals, showing that on your profile is so important because then that just helps me as the donor connect to, oh, look at that cute puppy. Look at that sweet old lady you're helping do a thing. Helps us really buy into your mission and the vision of where my money's going.
Definitely.
And I think some organizations might be thinking, my constituents, I can't take photos of. Perhaps it's children you don't have permission for.
Right.
Perhaps you're working with populations that are endangered in some way. And I think there's ways to work around that. I think you have to have already figured out visuals for your work in whatever way you've done that. And maybe it's looking for new versions of whatever you found. Maybe it is using stock images. Maybe it's whatever is going to work best. There is a visual for everybody. And I think having a clear communication that this is a stock image because the population you work with cannot be portrayed in this way is a very powerful message as well.
Yeah. Beautiful recommendation.
I know we've kind of talked a lot about visuals, but Megan, I'd love you if you could list out specifically what you think nonprofit, maybe a checklist of what nonprofits should try to have for visuals.
Oh, okay. Well, it depends on your nonprofit, of course, but I like to see a good hearty mix. And so that I do want to see your team members for sure. I want to see the folks who are working with you and for you, and I want to see happy faces, your leadership. Board members, it depends on your organization and how involved your board is and how often it turns over. So before you throw a bunch of board members onto your into your photo shoot or your GiveNOLA page, think about the makeup of your board and how often it turns over. As one little tip I would point out, certainly participants, but really I want to see your participants in action. We don't want to see a bunch of talking heads. So, which if that metaphor translates to photography, yes, we love smiling faces standing there, but I want a couple of those, but if I'm forming a shot list, I also want to see, for example, if you're in an organization that works with children, I want to see the children at play, or I want to see our teenagers, at work, with the cameras or, folks in the field. And so sometimes for our nonprofits, when you're out there and you're working, you're not going to have a professional camera on you all the time. And so also taking a minute to educate yourself on what a really nice iPhone picture looks like, and so that it's okay to have a mix of beautiful high resolution photography and really solid iPhone photos. But there are settings, filters, even little lenses that you can get. And it's worth the investment of your time and a very small investment of money. Sometimes as small as $5 or $10, $15, to make sure that you have the tools you need and you collect it all year. So you're not scrambling for it at hour zero.
I want to give a big shout out to iPhone. Because if you're a nonprofit and you're I can't afford to have a photographer come out 5 times in a year to get all these photos, training someone or a couple people on your staff or in your volunteer pool to like just take really great curated iPhone photos for you throughout the year is also a great pool to pull from.
Mm-hmm. And having that aesthetic eye for it does matter. And if you just know yourself and you're not somebody who is going to care if like somebody's head is cut halfway off or, you know, in the photo or like there's like a huge glare or there's a thumb in the middle of the shot. Like if you're just not that person, then identify someone
Pass
who
the phone.
is. Pass the phone over. Exactly.
Because truly the settings and the aesthetic eye, I think those two things alone with a device almost everyone already has, you can accomplish that.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, to round us out, what are common profile mistakes you've seen in the past?
Well, I think it's, you know, I don't want to say anybody's made mistakes, but upgrades people could do is I do think the way a logo appears, because on the browsing page, the image will be the logo, your organization's logo. So again, it's that after you finish your profile and it's been approved, go look at it on the front end, and you have the ability to go back in and edit your whole profile and your fundraising goal, et cetera, for quite a while. I would recommend getting everything sort of locked down about a month before GiveNOLA Day. But you can edit your goal throughout. So like if something on the day is going great and you want to increase it, or, you know, perhaps there's some donor distraction, you want to tone it down a little bit to achieve success, you know, that goal is editable. So actually, number one would be making sure you've got a reasonable goal and somebody working to keep an eye on it so that you achieve success on GiveNOLA Day would be great. Two, the logo. It might be that you need to crop it in. It might be that you need to rotate it, whatnot. So again, looking at your profile after it's published this year, the browsing page has a ton of search filters, so you can check to see all the ways your organization pops up. Budget size, parishes served, mission area, a little bit more than last year.
Oh, we're going to have fun clicking around this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then when you're looking at your page, again, I love the brother-in-law phrase, or sister-in-law. The idea of somebody who doesn't super know your work, doesn't know all the technical terms, doesn't know all of the like buzzwords. Can they look at your profile and be like, oh, I get it and I see it and I want to be a part of it? I think would be a great series of questions to ask, because, you know, a lot of folks do very nuanced and specific work, and they might need very certain accreditations or certifications or trainings. But in this context of being one of many, getting into that level of detail might not be the most beneficial. I think it could just cause some confusion. And I like the idea of like the click, I get it, I see it, and I want to be a part of it.
I have a big one.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about nonprofit leaders is that they're so passionate about their work, but sometimes that translates on their GiveNOLA Day profile as rambling, or it can come off as unorganized, which deteriorates the trust you're trying to build with the audience in a mere matter of seconds. And so my favorite trick with my favorite tactic to combat this with nonprofit organizations is I will say to the nonprofit leader, I just want you to talk at me with all of the passion and all of the excitement about everything that you do. Like this is why communications exists, right? This is why PR is a thing, is because that person with all of that vision can share it with me. And then knowing the key audience that they're trying to reach and understanding how to communicate with that audience, can take that information and condense it and format it in a way that's going to be easily digestible to that audience. Sometimes our nonprofit folks write a lot of information that just, even though they're trying to convey a passionate message, it ends up not being read or digested in the way that they intend it to be.
Megan, I have a question for you. I'm thinking about this word vomit and how we as nonprofits can sometimes put too much language. What about photos? Is there such a thing as too many photos or photo dumping a bit too much?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love this question. Yeah, more is not more. Let's be mindful. Just as we're intentional on our language, we want to be intentional with the content that we're putting on the profile or in any of our digital outlets for that matter. But I would really be thinking about what are those photos that are first going to represent your organization the quickest and elicit an emotional response from the audience that you're trying to reach. And if you don't think that that photo matches either of those two criteria, it probably doesn't belong on the profile.
Mm-hmm. So Megan, like 3 good photos is better than 9 okay photos.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
I would like more than 3 photos. I would like 9 great photos.
Okay.
But we do our best as nonprofits.
I like that of like discernment of like pick, if you only have 9 photos total, then pick your best like 3 or 4 maybe then, instead of posting all 9 where one might be blurry or out of focus or not the best, thumb in the frame, something like that.
Yeah. Let's just, for our nonprofits who are more literal, let's say I want to see 15 really good, great photos.
Okay.
And when I say no talking heads to, sometimes we have like, for example, at Gamble, we do a lot of society media. So there might be a great photo of you and 2 board members that was taken at, some gala. And we love those photos. But I mean, really one of those is satisfactory. Those are that kind of photo. Often we have easy access to that and it looks good. It's done with a professional camera. But is it telling a story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the good question is like what photos are best telling the story and specifically as we've talked about the story and message you're sharing through GiveNOLA Day.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And can you post 15 photos?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, good.
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
Alrighty. What do you want nonprofits to take away from this profile episode as their one actionable item to do? Diana?
I think just make sure you fill out those donation tiers. I think it takes 10 minutes, and it's really a meaningful way for donors to connect to your organization.
Megan, what do you have for them?
I would make sure you take a step back when you've filled out your profile and really think about it from the perspective of your audience. Have you really reached them in a way that is quick, clear, and compelling?
Rachel?
Absolutely. Both of those things for sure. And I think some amount about doubling down on that quick, clear, and compelling, like it might be that the simplest way to talk about your work is the best way to like lead into it. We work with blank to do blank. The change we make in the world is this, something like almost like trying out a tagline or something might be a great way to just clarify for that click, get it, want to be a part of it. Energy that we've talked about.
I just wanted to piggyback on that and say, in your lead up to GiveNOLA Day, when you're thinking about your social media strategy and how it integrates with your profile, social media is an excellent way to message test. I love the kind of formula that you've laid out of how you communicate that message. And if you want to play around with it a little bit, I mean, on social media, we have clear data, how much view, how much reach, how much engagement, how many clicks. And so really if you're really thinking ahead, using that time to kind of test out a couple of messages and see what hits.
That tie into what we talked about in episode 1 about like planning all year round. You can use the first couple of months of the year to test different messaging and then be more honed in 3 months before GiveNOLA Day.
Yeah.
And then just real quick for those organizations that are like, I don't have time for this. Can't do all of these things. I think it's just, making sure you're being as clear and direct as possible. Because I think in a lot of those organizations, it's maybe 1, maybe 3 people doing all of this incredible work. And again, it's that whole idea of y'all know what you're talking about and you get sort of spun out in your own words, asking yourself, is this clear, quick, and compelling?
Thanks, Rachel, Megan, and Diana for joining us again. In our next episode, we'll discuss how do you promote your campaign. Thanks for watching the GiveNOLA Day Playbook. Don't forget there's a free worksheet that goes along with the full series. It covers all 4 episodes and gives a complete customizable action plan that you can take with you straight into your GiveNOLA Day campaign. Download your copy at comfystone.com/GiveNOLA Day Playbook.